So welcome to the next Streamzy community meeting. The link to the meeting minutes should be in the chat so that everyone can open it. And the first thing we have on the agenda is open forum for any questions and issues and so on. Does anyone have anything?
I was wondering, it's the Kafka Summit in a couple of weeks, and I wondered whether there was anything we were doing in the Streamzy community around Kafka Summit. I don't know if any talks got accepted.
Certainly, my talk didn't get accepted.
I think we have some talks there from Red Hat, which where Streamzy probably will be mentioned in some way.
Yeah, I think in the IBM ones we might mention Streamzy, but it won't be it'll be sort of a link at the end probably.
Yeah, exactly. I think it will be more like something used in the demo and so on, but it won't be the main focus of the talks. Anyone has anything else? To the open forum? Please don't delete the links in the meeting minutes. Okay, then the next point on the agenda are some PRs and issues which I thought might be interesting to look at and discuss. So one of them was a question about setting up Kerberos for Mirror Maker 2. And we currently don't really support Kerberos at all for anything. And the Kerberos support is, to be honest, a bit clumsy on OpenShift because you need either some sidecar or you need the host to be configured to deal with getting the Kerberos tickets and so on. And it doesn't really fit that well into the Kubernetes and OpenShift world, in my opinion. So I guess I wanted to discuss this to kind of see whether we think this is something what we might get to in the future and we might be interested in implementing. In which case, maybe we can change this question to enhancement issue, or whether we think we will never really get to this and we don't really want to have all the Kerberos complications introduced by that. And in that case, we should probably close that issue.
I don't know anything about Kerberos, so I don't have any input to give.
I also know nothing about Kerberos. Have many people asked about it in the past, or is this like the first time?
I think this is the only issue I'm aware of, but it's for sure it was asked a few times in the past. But it's not like it's something hundreds of people are desperately waiting for.
Hmm.
So there are some mentions, but I think some of them might be just through some config files or logs or something. I think this is the only one really asking for the support.
It sounds like to me, if we wanted to support Kerberos, it would be a proposal, right, of all of the changes that would need to go in to just sort of trivially support it, or at least support it in a minimal sense. So maybe we say, if you would like this, then maybe think about writing a proposal for this and what would be involved.
I don't think the user has really. I think in this case, the user would be interested in having it, but I don't think really he would be interested in contributing it. At least I think that's what we discussed somewhere here. So I don't think he would write the proposal, right?
Yeah.
So as Kafka supports Kerberos through GSS API, do you think it's an inhibitor for people that come looking for or looking at Strimzi and deciding whether they're going to use it or not? The fact that the support isn't there actually puts them off.
Talking right now.
Might be for some, but it's really hard to guess for how many.
So my feeling is that adding it across the board as a equivalent option to TLS and Scramjar will be quite a lot of work, and I don't think that we can really justify that if we can only really sort of point to this one instance where someone's asked for it. So while I wouldn't want to sort of say we'll never do it, I don't think we can justify the time on it right now.
Yeah, agree. So what we can do maybe is just replying to the user on that issue and saying that yeah, for now it's not on our roadmap, but he can just start a proposal, opening a PR if he wants. Otherwise, it will not be in Strimzi, or at least there will be no effort from our side to implement it.
I think we did that, but the question is, what do we do with the issue now? So we can convert it into an enhancement and keep it open forever.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah.
Or we can just close it because we are not going to implement it.
No, I think it's helpful to have it open because then people can, +1 it, and hopefully over time we'd see that there was more interest. And if we didn't see that, then it would validate the decision that we seem to be making right now.
Okay. So, and I have it opened in the wrong browser window. So let's change it. So sorry, I'm just updating the issue on other screen in different browser where I'm logged into GitHub. Okay, so I changed it to enhancement, and I added there that we decided to keep this open, but do not plan to work on this, and that anyone who wants to start with this should feel free, best by opening a proposal. Sounds good?
Yes.
Yep, sounds perfect to me.
Okay, the next issue is basically similar. It's a question. This one came for sure multiple times, and that's about being able to mount some volumes into the Kafka Connect pods. And so there is always some interest into that because some people want to use that to read some files, write to some files, and so on. The slightly complicated thing is that because it runs as a deployment, and by the nature that you need to somewhere supply these files and somewhere load these files, you actually need to have read-write many volumes, or at least read-only volumes, and you need to somehow kind of synchronize that deployments mount the exact volumes where some other application is maybe handling the data and so on. So I guess the question here is very similar to the one with the Kerberos, whether we want to change this to some enhancement and keep track of that, or whether we want to close this, or how do we want to proceed here? Any opinions?
So do we want to expose the user to be able to add custom volumes? Is a real question. Like, is that problematic?
I think it's more or less similar to the Kerberos, right? It's some more work.
Yeah.
I'm not completely convinced by the use cases of using this.
Mm-hmm.
The file stream source and sync connectors are, my impression from using them is they're not really intended for production use anyway, are they? They're kind of, here's something so you can try something off the bat, but if you want to do something real, then there are other connectors that you'd probably more likely use.
Yeah, I think they are actually quite useless. And I know from people who try them that they have also problems dealing with, for example, big files. But I think there are, for example, some better connectors which, I don't know, can read files or write files in some better way. For me, it was always a bit more like, if you want to do this, maybe you should use standalone connect and not the distributed connect, which is what we deploy. But I don't know, there's always someone asking about these things.
So it sounds like to me that we're just going to say that we don't have time to support this right now.
So I don't think we have to say, okay, we are going to implement it next week, right?
Yeah.
But if you think this is something what in theory would be interesting for us and we don't have problem if, for example, someone else implements it,
Yeah.
then we can, again, as with the last issue, just change it to an enhancement without necessarily saying we are going to implement it in the next release, right? It's not like we don't have enhancements there lying for 2 years. So I think it's more whether we kind of see this as a definitely no, or whether we can imagine this being implemented when, I don't know, we get bored or when someone contributes this and so on.
Supposing we did decide that this was something we wanted to do we think we would configure this in the Kafka Connect resource or the connector resource?
I think it needs to be in the Connect resource.
Yeah, I shouldn't say.
Because that's what configures the deployment.
Yeah, but that then sort of feels a bit. I mean, you're right from that sort of implementation point of view, but it feels a bit weird to have to configure it there when presumably it's only going to be one connector which is actually going to be making use of it.
Yeah, but if you accept the idea that you have one connect and then on that you deploy many connectors, then I don't think the connector resources should be configuring the things which influence the whole connect deployments and would cause restarts of the deployments and so on.
Yeah, I'm just thinking from a security point of view, though, it means that any connector can now access that file.
That will be there anyway.
Well, true.
Right? If you configure it in the connector, it will still be mounted into the pod.
Yeah.
And still any connector can access that.
I think then highlighting it as a potential enhancement would be a good idea, but I think that what Tom just described is a bit problematic, of that other connectors could potentially access these files, which you might not want all the users of the system to be able to do.
I mean, that's a simple solution, right? But that's, so this is not the only thing which has exactly the same problem. Because everything, if the connectors share the connect with other resources, then they can basically access all the different things between each other, not just the files. They can also access the configuration. They can also access the secrets and so on. And then you have fairly easy workaround, right? You can just use one connector per connect deployment, and then you don't really have this problem.
It's the same with their access to the topics as well, isn't it? All of the connectors can write to all the topics that you've enabled connector write to.
Yeah, I think that's the same as well.
Oh, fair.
So I think that's more kind of the discussion whether you actually should use connect, that you have one connect cluster with many different connectors, or whether you should always use just one connector per connect. And I know there are people like Gunnar Morling who usually normally recommend to have always one connect for each connector, but we also had someone on the Slack ask about running connect with, what was that? 1,300 connectors or something like that, which was quite a lot. And it didn't work that well, apparently. So should we keep this as an enhancement?
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Yep.
Okay, I will update the issue later. And then, so the next one was this PR, which we have opened from a user, which improves some of the Grafana dashboard. But for whatever reason, I will really need to open this in the window where I'm logged in, I guess. So the problem is that the user did something wrong when reconciling it. And it has this weird thing when it has a lot of different commits in it, with a lot of different files which don't really belong into the PR. Anyone from the maintainers has any idea how to fix this and get rid of the commit? I spent about an hour on that, and I didn't really succeed it without losing half of the actual information from the dashboard.
Can you not just cherry pick each of the commits that you want?
Yeah, I was about to suggest.
It somehow didn't work for me.
Oh.
I'm not really the most experienced Git user, to be honest. Usually I don't go beyond git commit and git pull. So if you want to try it, maybe you can have a look, guys.
Yeah, I can have a look at it.
Okay. Does anyone have any other issues or PRs which he wants to discuss? In that case, I added here a bunch of proposals, which I think are all approved and can be merged. So, Sam, I think we can merge this now, right?
Yeah. As next steps, shall I raise some issues for each individual? I don't know, like, shall I say this should be raised for this section? So basically just raise a few enhancements for design docs.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
I think you can do that, yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so let's merge this one. So then another one which we had was the 8. which so we had 8 and then we had 10. So this one is all approved now as well, and can be merged. I think we just created a conflict with the numbering, so I will merge it later manually and fix the numbering. And then I think this one, Tom, I think you are the only one who didn't approve this yet. Should we wait for you or should we merge it as well?
Yeah, you can merge it.
Or do you need more time to kind of look at it again? You were off last week, so.
Yeah. So my slight hesitation is around Gunnar's comment, which is to what extent this makes sense in upstream Kafka, because that would potentially benefit more people, those that weren't using Strimzi. But doing it here doesn't preclude doing it upstream at some point in the future. So I don't think that should necessarily be an impediment, but I would, if I can find the time, I would like to have a look to see whether it would fly as an upstream KIP.
Yeah, I'm happy to work with you on that if you're interested.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the idea to have it upstream is fair. But I mean, realistically, if you open a KIP, if you spend some time getting the votes and then implementing it, then yeah, 2.6 is not yet released. 2.7, not sure you would be able to get this into 2.7, so, or 3.0 or whatever the version will be. So I guess you can easily get it in Kafka in a fairly long time, whereas if we implement it in Strimzi ourselves, then that can be probably much faster, right?
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Okay, so I guess this will have exactly the same conflict, but yeah, I can merge this one manually. After the meeting as well. And I think it still leaves us with some of the proposals for the UI and the admin API server. Do we have something to discuss around them as well, or actually there's one more PR which I forgot, this proposal template. I guess it's fine to merge this as well. Tom Bentley, it looks like you are again the only one who didn't approve this.
Yeah, I'm fine with that to be merged.
Right, and that leaves us with the two proposals for the UI and for the admin REST server or GraphQL server. Do we have anything to discuss right now on this meeting for those two?
So those two are blocked at the moment, waiting for me to put the security stuff together. So unfortunately, I haven't finished that yet, but I will try and get that done by the next community meeting.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. So anyone has anything else to the proposals, or can we move to the next topic? So I think the next thing we wanted to discuss is the survey. Paolo, you shared earlier a link for the survey in the SurveyMonkey. Can you share it here as well?
Yeah, let me just.
And I don't know whether you can also share the document with the comments you already collected, or.
So sharing the link is easy. Sharing the document, maybe not, because it's using my corporate account. So where do you want that I have to share the link? In the chat here?
Into the meeting minutes, please.
Ah, okay.
Right, so this is the draft of it based on the question we discussed last time. So I guess maybe we can collect the feedback which we gather right now here as well.
Yeah, it's better because, you know, I cannot share the link to everyone from here.
So I think the first comment which we had was around this text input for version checkbox.
If you want, I can just copy and paste.
Yeah, maybe you can do that.
Yeah. I had something like this. Let me see what will happen when I'm going to paste. Yeah, it's fabulous.
That's okay. Then we had 11 questions.
Yeah, right.
So I think we already collected some of the feedback. So I think that in the question 2, this is obviously not what was supposed to end there. And I think we should also make it clear if we want everyone to specify the version number in here, even if they use some of the Kubernetes distributions above. Then for the question 4, what we are thinking is that it might be interesting to kind of split this not used by my organization to something like not used yet, but planned or considered, and something like not used and not planned. Then for the question 5, it looks like a bit weird way how to provide answers to the follow-ups, because the text box is really only with the other. So maybe they can just kind of do it like this. And then for the 8, it seemed, I think I added this comment, it seemed to me that the now and desired very bit strange options, especially if we have already all these options available. So to be honest, I got a bit lost what was our intention about this question and why it's not just a checkbox of the things which the users are actually using. Anyone has any other comments to any other question?
I don't have any more comments over and above what you've described, which all seem like reasonable things to go back to them on.
I guess we can already delete the empty questions, right?
So I guess that now we should make some decisions in order to have me reporting back to CNCF and saying we would like to change here and there. Because, for example, for the question number 5, where I raised the point that there is no way for I don't know, having a text box. So there is now no text box for adding a follow-up. I can just say our user can provide some follow-up here with the text box. But for the point that you raised, Jakub, about now and desired, it's or even this one on question 4, it's something that we have to decide, right? So that I can say to CNCF, we want to add the new column with this caption and so on.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess the question is, does everyone think it would make sense to kind of split this column into two, one for not used but planned and one for not used and not planned?
Yes.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
Right, so maybe just after the meeting, Paolo, you can check with Tom Bentley or someone to get the wording right.
Yeah, okay.
So for this one, I don't know, does anyone, maybe Tom, you are the best one, does anyone remember what did we expect it from this now and desired?
I think this has been rather overtaken by events because I think we've decided to, we've already got the proposal for supporting multiple external listeners. So I think the desired column is kind of pointless. I think you've actually already made that comment sometime in the past. So I'd be quite happy to just drop the desired column.
So maybe we basically just change it to checkbox with the multiple options?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else you think needs to be decided, Paolo, before we can get back to CNCF?
No, I don't think so. So for question 2, what was the problem there?
So I guess the first problem is that this text input for version doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And then I think it will not be clear to the users that even if they select, for example, Minikube, that we want them to specify the version here. But I'm not sure whether we can really do something about it, to be honest.
Yeah, I think there's definitely the risk of getting sort of an incomplete data set because people tick the box and don't really see the text input for version number. It's still better to have partial data, I would guess, in this case, than not have it at all.
Yeah, I think that's true.
So maybe it's just better removing that text input version checkbox and leaving the other field, but without the plus version number.
I think we need an extra text box for the version number. And possibly if we had that first before all the checkboxes, then it would be harder for people to miss.
So like this?
So I'm not sure. If I want to say I'm using, I don't know, Minikube 1.0, I have to check Minikube and then how I can specify the version in the.
So I'm suggesting that you'd have a text input for the version as the first bit after the question. So the question would read, what version of Kubernetes do you run Strimzi on, and which distribution? And so the first thing you'd see after that would be a checkbox for a text box for the version number, and then you'd see the list of checkboxes, which would include an other with a separate text box for them to specify if it's not one of the ones which is given.
Okay, so you are proposing to add a new text box before the kind
Yes.
checkbox, right?
Yes, for them to specify the version number, yeah.
Okay. And then changing the question in the way, what version of Kubernetes and what distribution? So changing the order because you are asking first for the
Yes.
version and then for the distribution.
Yes.
Okay. Jakub, are you going to take a note about that?
Maybe it's better if you take it because you need to understand it later.
Okay, okay.
Or I mean, if you remember it, I think the note which is there right now is more or less okay. It just doesn't explain all the details which you need to explain to whoever at CNCF is editing the survey.
Does it make sense to you, Tom?
Yeah, that looks fine.
Okay. Anything else to the survey? Okay, I take it as not. So then the other thing was, so I guess all maintainers got the email about the annual review, which we need to go through. And if you read the expectations, there was a lot of focus on the adopters, among other things. So what I was wondering is whether we should create the adopters.md file and probably in the operator repo as we discussed on Slack, and then try to kind of run some campaign on Twitter and on Slack to ask users if they are interested to add themselves to the adopters list. And I guess another question is whether we can really just copy into the adopters file the users who we have already on the website, or whether we need them to open the PRs despite them already doing it for the website. Opinions?
I think that sounds reasonable to me.
Yeah, I've got no problem with having an adopters file for ones where we've already got people on the website. I would just, if we've got a contact sort of email or whatever, I'd just let them know out of courtesy that this is what they were doing, so that they could opt out if they really wanted to. But do it for them so they don't actually have to spend time on it.
I'm not sure we have contact for all of them, to be honest, or at least I don't have it.
Well, if we've not got contact, then we've not got contact, but I'll do it anyway in that case.
So I guess adding Red Hat is quite easy, right? Paolo, did you work with Helvetia and Lightband?
Yes.
Can you try to figure out who did you talk with and check with them?
Yeah.
And I will try to find the actual guy on Slack and confirm with him whether we can add them there as well. And then once we have the approvals, we can open a PR with the file. And then once we have the file with some content there, we can kind of ask users on Slack and Twitter to add themselves there.
Do we need any specific information from them to put into the adopters file, or just the name? Or
I don't think so. I think for the things like the Exul or whatever the pronunciation is, they had this article about how they are using Streamzy, I think on, I don't know, IT Next or one of these kind of portals. So I think where we have something like that, it would be great to have the link in the adopters file to be able to kind of link to that and read about it. And I guess if there is nothing like that, then yeah, there's nothing like that, and that's it. Then there's no link, and really just the company name and maybe a link to the website, to their website or something like that, so that people can find them.
okay.
Okay, anything else to this topic? Okay, it looks like we have still 7 minutes. Anything else anyone wants to discuss? In that case, I guess that's it for today.
Thanks, Jakob. Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
folks.
Thanks everyone for coming, and see you next time.
Thank you, guys. See you.